So today, guys, we're here. We have Christi and Chance Brasiel. Is how we say it? Last name?
That's right.
All right. So Delta K-9 Solutions, and we have some other companies we'll talk towards the end. But Chance, so one of the reasons that I wanted you guys to come on this podcast and talk, the experience that I had when we brought our dog, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember. My wife would correct me. I know if she was here. But we had a golden doodle, and we bought a golden doodle, and we knew when we made that purchase that I'm going to want the dog well trained. I grew up as a kid with dogs, and most of the dogs I had were Labrador retrievers, and we had some hunting dogs, and I trained those dogs to do the basic things we needed to. I don't know if you ever heard of the book The Water Dog, and that was the book I used to try to teach the dog to go fetching.
Yeah.
Never great, never a champion, but I understood early on the value of having a trained dog or trained companion. Well, I wouldn't say companion, get misconstrued there. But yeah, having a trained dog, the difference from me having a dog that had some obedience versus my neighbor friends who didn't have one, it was night and day difference experience that we had with our dog. So when we got the golden doodle, or I had the order placed, I called you guys, and Christi, you're the one that answered the phone and said, okay, tell me about the dog.
That's right.
You're getting. And
you were part of the golden doodle explosion.
Yeah, so I was, and we're thankful. We love the dog that we have. I did not know the grooming care that I was going to be involved
That's right.
in.
Nobody does. That's okay.
But the one thing that you said on that phone to me that scared me to death is,
what did I say?
You said, "Oh my word." When I told you asked what kind of dog I was getting, well, that's some high energy. And I'm just like, what have I done? And you're like, no worries. We got you covered. So we had the dog, and I don't know how, I think it's 6 months before y'all start training, right?
Yeah. For the board and train, they have to be 6 months. Yes.
So that board and train process, I mean, I was counting the days till we could drop this dog off.
That's right.
And hit that magic button, and it'll be fixed. We'll talk a little bit more about that experience. But Chance, I'd like to go back to where this started. I mean, where did this all start with you? Through my little bit of internet sleuthing, it sounds like you kind of got started in the Air Force. So tell me a little bit about how you got started in training dogs.
Well, in 1997, I went into the Air Force. I went into the Air Force wanting to be a security policeman. So when I went into the recruiter, they showed me all these different, at the time it was VHS videotapes that they put in a VCR, and you'd watch all these different careers, and I've always been interested in dogs. My grandfather, I hung out with him, and he had a Doberman, and he would tell me to go work with BB and stuff like that. So I already had an interest in dogs. So I saw this one special career field that was completely different from all the other ones. They were in casual clothes or dressed in suits with dogs, and they went on a military base. And I said, that's what I want to do. And he says, well, you have to be selected for that after you graduate from the police academy. So I went in and went through boot camp, went through the police academy, and had my first assignment to go to Florida. So I was pumped up about that. I was about 2 weeks out. And then they came in and said, hey, we're got a meeting. We just want to see who's interested in the K-9 career field. So everybody came in, and they listed off a bunch of sacrifices. Like, you're going to give up your base, you're going to stay here for another 4 months training dogs under strict discipline and so forth. And it didn't matter to me. I mean, that's what I was there for. That's what that's what I was going to do. And I was selected. I was one of the last classes that they actually pulled from the academy class. From there on, they took them you had to have 3 years of experience.
So get you to pause there for a second. I did not know, and so I have a nephew that went into the Marines, and he went in with that goal also. He wanted to be a K-9 handler in the Marines. This is just recent, and I did not know that there's a pretty tough selection process nowadays to be able
competitive
to get into any branch of service to be a dog handler. And I just didn't. It didn't dawn on me that it was going to be that tough of a selection process. So it sounds like not only back when you did it that it was a rigorous selection process, but it's even more strict nowadays.
Yes. Now you actually have to have some skin in the game. You got to be on in law enforcement for 3 years in the Air Force before you can, or I believe throughout the Department of Defense, because it all goes through the Air Force.
Right.
So that's where I went in at, and we train there at Lackland Air Force. We start with basically all the obedience part first. Doing obedience, we do the bite work, and then once you finish that part, you get into the scent detection part work, and then basically at the end of it all comes together.
Tell Brian what your first dog was, because that's funny.
Oh, it was a bucket. It was a bucket. So you spend like the first week. It's about 95% of it is field work. It's hands-on training. Right. About 10% of it's classroom. So you spend the first week learning some of the classroom stuff, and you're spraying out the kennels of these 10 dogs because there's only 10 people in our class. There's like 7 Air Force guys, and they got 3 slots for the other departments of Army, Navy, or Marines. So we all kind of have an eye on our dog that we want, So the day that we're supposed to start working our dog, they go, okay, well, spray out your kennel. We sprayed out the dog's kennel, and they said, turn around. They hand us a piece of tape and said, write your dog's name on the tape and tear it off and pass it down. So I was wondering, why are we doing this? So I wrote the dog's name on the tape, and I turned around and started grab a bucket. Grab the bucket and put that name on that bucket, attach your leash to it, and that was the dog. And
so
they
his
explained
first dog
to
was
us.
a bucket.
They explained to us
awesome.
because while you're training and you're learning, you're going to make mistakes. Make the mistakes on the bucket, not on the dog.
I mean, that's a great philosophy to be able to have.
So
I love telling that story.
yeah, the bucket story. The bucket story. Then
Kind of hard to mess up a bucket.
Right.
If you are going to make some major mistakes, a bucket would be better than
yes,
a dog,
yeah.
right?
I just had a little block of concrete in it, and it's funny because when you go through it's when you go through all the weeks, you start getting your dog, and then you see a new class, and they're carrying around buckets, and you just laugh at it, and that was me a few weeks ago. But
how long did it take you to go from bucket to dog?
It's been like 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
You're just working on obedience, how to hold the leash, how to turn, the body movement, stuff like that, the body language stuff.
So tell me a little bit about, I know that there has to be, I think in the military it's probably more prevalent than in our local police departments. I would think that in the military that dog is probably going to end up having multiple handlers throughout that dog's service, right?
Correct.
Police department in most areas is going to be a little bit different. I mean, if you're a K-9 handler, most of the time you're going to be, if you're good at it, if you're passionate about it, you're going to be with that dog, probably that dog's career. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Yes.
So is there a training difference in between training a K-9 in the armed services versus the police department, knowing that that dog could have different handlers? Or do you think it's pretty much all the same?
Ooh.
Good question.
Because I believe that there's, although I know that you would undoubtedly have a lot of the same practices, just like in my business selling real estate, relationships so important, but that relationship that you have with the K-9, of being able to develop a bond between the two, now that you can reflect on it, were there any differences in how you would train for that? Or is just you're just going to rely on the dog to be adaptive?
Yeah, so in the Air Force, we have great civilian police departments in this area, great handlers in this area. But the advantage over Air Force is I was in the Air Force for 6 years, and I handled 13 dogs.
Wow.
I was with West Monroe Police Department as a K-9 handler for 12 years and had 2 dogs during that whole 12 years. So not only do you get exposed to a lot more dogs, but they'll swap you around also from a bomb dog to a drug dog.
Okay.
So you have to be able to break away from that emotional attachment that you have with that dog, because in 2 weeks later you're with another dog,
right.
It's a bomb dog, and now you have to start training it to work with you to pass certification and do something.
Right.
So the Air Force is more extensive. It's more of a lot more hands-on training with more dogs, a lot more dogs. You get more experience, and that's the ultimate teacher's experience. I
Sure.
mean, you can have knowledge, but knowledge is power, but the experience is the teacher's the greatest teacher.
I forget who it was here recently was saying something along those lines that, knowledge is not power. It's the application of that knowledge is where the power comes from. And sometimes we sit there and we forget that. So we're in the Air Force. You graduate from being, I guess, a handler, and then you get stationed someplace.
Correct.
So take us down that path. What was it like from? Well, tell me about the first dog you got assigned.
Well, the first I was at Tyndall Air Force Base. I had a dog named Marco. He was my very first dog. And I'd also like to, when I got out of the handler school, I was one of the last classes to graduate straight from the academy.
They called that pipeline.
They called it
Okay.
pipeline. Basically, you pipeline right out of the academy into K-9 Academy.
Okay.
And after that, you had to have 3 years of experience. So I immediately, within a year, I found myself a year and a half to 2 years, being one of the most experienced but lowest ranking person because of the shift of the career field.
That makes sense.
So, and I didn't really realize it at first, but, starting off, I got really attached to my dog. I was single, the beach was in walking distance. If I was off, we'd go to the beach. It'd be a private beach. We'd run the beach. He'd hang out with me, with my friends and stuff like that. And then one day they just, hey, turn in your dog. And in 2 weeks, you're going to start with another dog. And it's over, just like that. So at that point, it broke my heart. And, I still had a passion to work with dogs, but it's just that emotion. I had to kind of back off a little bit and kind of think it is, we're professionals in this, and we're going to kind of do our thing, but, we're not going to get too deep because in 6 months, 8 months, we could break up and be on another dog.
Right.
And then you got to learn how that dog works, and he has to learn how your timing is. So that was my first experience with going to my first base, and I think I had 2 or 3 dogs there.
So what were your main roles when you got assigned to that base with the K-9s?
Well, as soon as I got there, they had I was on a bomb dog, Marco. It's weird because how they do it is when they surrender, but when they give a dog to a new handler, they spend about 2 weeks that dog stays in the kennel. So all they do is they spray it out and feed it. They don't take
Why
it out.
is that?
To
make that separation happen?
Yes. So it might be a week and a half, but to 2 weeks, somewhere in that timeline. So when the new person comes in and I put that leash on him and I take him outside to walk, he's like, I love you.
Yeah.
Forget the old handler.
Yeah.
Like, I love you.
Yeah, they left me here. You're
Yeah,
coming to save me.
you're my hero. So
Right.
we take them out and like brush them and just take them for a nice walk. And
And aren't you with them for like a month before you pass some tests with them?
yeah, most of the time it's usually 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how fast y'all get it together.
So from a training aspect or an everyday working, so you're going to have a bond with this dog, but you've learned that dog is a tool, or it's a partner for now. It's not partner forever, maybe. But when you're going through the training process and you're trying to learn each other, I would assume that at least with the Air Force, all the training is going to be consistent. It's everything's SOP. We're doing it like this every single time, but the results are not always going to be like that. How many times do you think or when the dog and the handler are not in sync, would you say it's 50-50 handler, 50-50 dog on who's screwing up? Because, I mean, that dog is looking at you for direction. How much is related to the handler, the way the handler is handling, versus the dog's skill set, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Off the cuff, I would say a majority of it's all the handler, because the dog is just
the dog already knows.
Yeah, he's just receiving whatever you're passing down, and what your body movement and what you're doing. So it's all you. I mean, it's just like if a dog pees in your house, it's not the dog's fault. It's your fault,
And that's one of the things you guys taught me, like right off the bat. Even in the when we did what do you call that? Y'all did an assessment before we dropped the dog
Consultation.
off. Yeah, so we did a consultation. And oh my word, you changed my life overnight, because we were going through the whole potty training thing, and I'm cleaning up pee and poop like it ain't nobody's business, and I thought I'm doing the right thing. And I mean, you guys just told me, said, look, it ain't rocket science. What goes in must come out. And y'all shared the technique that I'm sure you still share with people about, how you feed in the kennel, you water in the kennel.
All the management.
Yep. And it was just like the next day. We did that, and the next day it was fixed.
Because you did it.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
changed.
You
I've changed, and I don't think people really understand that when it comes to training. A lot of the training is on the handler. It's on the owner of the animal, and that was probably the biggest eye-opening experience in working with you guys. Is you guys took the time to train me, and it wasn't much. It was some conversation, and I had no idea how much of an impact me changing just small, simple things would have such a huge impact on how that dog responds. So it just really blew my mind, even though for you guys, like, well, it's a no-brainer, but for me, it was like eye-opening experience. I've been going through all of this many rolls of paper towels, and I'm getting upset at the kids. The kids ain't doing what they're supposed to be, and dogs peeing everywhere. And just one little simple thing of training the owner got the dog to give you the reaction that you're looking for. So as you're advancing your career through the military, how did you ever find yourself to where you were back in that training role, training other people in the dog handling? Did you have any type of rotation going through that, or were you pretty much out in the field after you graduated your handling school?
Out in the field. So I spent a couple years in Florida, and then I went to Honduras for a year. And when I got to Honduras, I was still around veteran handlers, and working with like the Secret Service and DA and Customs, you're exposed to a lot more other handlers.
So how did you get involved in those other branches? Were you still in the Air Force at this time?
I was still in the Air Force. They basically the Secret Service. They rely at the time, and probably still do a lot, rely on the Air Force handlers for bomb detection work.
Okay.
For the dogs. So, because their Secret Service, they only have enough dogs for like Washington D.C. So, if the president or dignitary travels, then they would bring in a bomb dog handler from the closest Air Force base. So it's basically like contract work.
Sure.
Basically.
But I liked the chances being super modest right now.
Well, you tell me. You dig a little deeper then for me.
So he's actually won awards, and they only select the best to do these kinds of things. Chance is not going to say that, but I'm his wife, and
Sure.
I like to give him that kind of credit because he really was the best even back then.
So I would have to, emphasize that. I mean, context has to say it because we had an opportunity to go to Washington D.C. this past summer, and it was my first time ever going. It was a bucket list trip for me, and we got to go to the White House and to the Capitol building. And you see the dogs there that are actually working with Secret Service or Capitol Police. And I would think that would make sense that they have to have their focus that's there making it happen. And when they do travel, if they need dogs, they're not going to just call, hey, local police department, I'm sure you got a great dog, but we need the best of the best to come out here and make sure this is
for
taken care
Chance
of.
to be selected. It was really an honor for Chance.
So during that time when you get to be around people outside of the Air Force, and were you intermingling with other agencies and the way they handle dogs?
Oh, yes. I remember being in Chicago. They had a huge K-9 team, and they were pulling out like training aids that like blew my mind. I mean, for an explosive dog, we was running maybe 12, 14 different types of training aids, and he'd pull out like 20-something different training aids.
And what type of organization was this?
This is this is Chicago Police Department.
Okay.
So or it could be anywhere, just somewhere big city where they have a large K-9 group, or I might be around another handler that's been in the field for 20 years. But
and I think that kind of stuff is really important to be able to not only hone your skills, but to being able to learn from others that are real world practical type lessons. I think is hugely important, because if you stay in that one box thinking this is the information I know and this is all I'm going to know, there's going to be stuff you're not going to know. So
you never grow.
Getting with other agencies, I think is great. So tell us a little bit about kind of how the Air Force career has gone before we get out of the Air Force. So
once I came back from Central America, I was around a lot of seasoned handlers. I learned a lot while I was down there, a lot of field, practical, real life stuff. And when I came back to the States, I found that the experience at the base that I went to, I was the lowest ranking guy with the most experience. And they were setting up things incorrectly, that was causing problems. Like, they had a girl that couldn't certify with her dog, and she was on her 4th certification. And they was going to boot her if she couldn't pass the certification. So they sent me out there to go talk to her. I went out there to talk to her, came back in, she passed her certification. And her problem was that she was using her reward for a fetch before she came in there to do the search with the dog. Well, the dog didn't want to work because it's been out there fetching its reward the whole time before they actually did the training experience.
So you paid the dog before the dog did the job.
Right. So
just like us, if you're going to pay us to do the work before we do it, if we don't have a great work ethic, we're not going to do the work, right?
Yeah. Some people are like that. Yeah. But so, you know, fix that, you know, so, I got into a position where, like, I got to kind of be careful with how, you know, I'm going to talk to higher ranking people and teach them how to correctly run a training, you know, program.
So how was that received when you're the lower ranking person, but you've got all this experience and you see the problem, or you know that you have value to be able to add? Did you get any pushback on that, or are they fairly receptive?
I treat them like a dog. So when I work with a dog, I don't tell a dog. I guide the dog and I show the dog. So basically, I let them set things up and I let them see the failure in it. And then I said, hey, let's set up this way. And they saw the success of it.
Can I show you something different?
Yeah. So I kind of led them into it, basically.
And then redirect it.
Yeah. And then they saw, you know, instead of saying, hey, that's wrong, this is the way you're supposed to do it, they did it wrong. Then I set up the problem and they did it correctly. And then, I mean, it was received very well after that. I mean, because, you had people running the kennels that are ahead of the kennels of maybe 8 to 10 dogs that's never even handled a dog before.
Wow.
You know, and he's looking at training records that he's never even completed a training record before, you know. So a lot of it started coming back on me, you know, because, hey, we need help with this. We need help, you know, is this right? Is this right? So I didn't realize at the time, but I think God was kind of pushing me in a way not only to work with dogs, but also to work with people. So when I got out, you know, so that I finished out in Charleston, and then September 11th happened. And then they kept me in for an extra year, and that's when I went to the Middle East.
How long did you serve overseas for?
Oh, gosh.
6 months.
And I'll never forget it, because when 9/11 happened, he was already getting papers to go ahead and get on out. And then they swapped him to a bomb dog because he's on a drug dog at the time. And then as soon as I remember the dog's name was Bach, B-A-K, a beautiful, gorgeous, long hair.
Were y'all married at this time?
Oh, yes. We've been married for almost 25 years.
We met right before I went to Honduras.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that Chance said, I'm getting a bomb dog. And I said, you're going to be gone. They're gonna, I mean, as a wife, you know, you just know if your husband gets a bomb dog, your husband's going to be gone. Drug dogs, not so much. Drug dogs work with customs. Bomb dogs works, you know, especially not after 9/11. And he was gone for 6 months. We didn't know. He didn't know where he was even going.
Where'd you end up getting deployed to?
Bahrain.
Okay. So in Bahrain, wasn't active battleground, but I'm sure it wasn't the safest place to be. What type of work did they have you doing in Bahrain? I know you're with a bomb dog, but was it strictly like on the base, or were you with like a protective detail with dignitaries going around and scoping things out beforehand?
So on a normal day, we searched everything that came on the base. So you basically have a gate entry, but probably about 3/4 to a mile out, you have a checkpoint that you have to come through the dog first.
The most dangerous checkpoint. I mean, you get up to the base, you've done been through a couple different layers. So
yeah, so we're the first front line search, and I thought it was, you know, I had a black German Shepherd.
This is how he got out of day shift.
So I'm thinking, you know, it's really hot in the desert, Middle East. So I'll say, hey, this dog is not going to work which I wouldn't tell him a lie. It's not going to work very well in desert, being solid, long hair, black hair.
Right.
So they put me on straight nights, and I was happy with that. But you know, there's some things that happens out there that, you know, you question, like when people you can see for miles and they just turn off their headlights and they sit there for a while. And they pull a little closer, and they turn off their headlights, and you sit there and watch them. Then they pull up, and now you got to go out there and search the car. So during that time, I was in stop loss, and I really got out of the the square. You know, I really got out of the box. And I didn't know how long I was going to be there, so let's have fun. I'm just going to be myself.
So what do you mean by that? You got out of the box. You're going to have a little fun.
I got out of the box, not doing things the normal way.
Okay.
Not going out there and searching one car, search the second car, search the third car, then fourth car. Why don't I have the dog go out there and why don't I train him to search them all by himself while I stay behind the concrete barrier?
Sure.
So basically, we would search everything that came through on the base, and then after we searched it, I would go back and plant something, and basically have the dog believe that he missed it.
Wow.
So
psychologically, what did that do to the dog, you think?
Made him think he was always missing something, so he always had to keep smelling him. So he would get to the point, I mean, I would have to drag him off the cars because he would start crawling underneath the cars because he was thinking, okay, it's not on I can't find it, maybe I need to go underneath, you know. So, you know, normally they would go out there and circle around each individual car. Well, he would just do each car by himself. And then he would just keep searching.
Until you pulled him off.
Until I pull him off. And then I'd go out there and plant an aid and let him find it. Oh, I missed that.
So he's got a reward at that point.
Yes. So at that time, man, I got really, you know, outside the box and said, hey, I can do things a little different and make it even better.
How was that received during that time? Or did anybody really know that you were kind of trying some new stuff?
It was received well. I mean, everybody was pretty impressed with it, you know. They wish they didn't have to go out there.
Well, the reason I ask is that I know, so I've never served. If I have really one regret in my life, it was because I never did serve. So I'm so thankful for those who have and have great respect for that. But I know that from what I know about the military, I mean, everything is documented. We have a practice and a policy, and you have to take every step or somebody's going to die, stuff's going to get lost, and somebody's going to get fired or end up in jail. So you got outside the box and you broke the norm of what the SOP was on how we're supposed to do it. Did that lead to changes in how you guys worked in the future, or was this just something you developed and you kept with you and you just used it within your career?
Yeah, I just used it with my career because you got to have somebody motivated. I mean, that wasn't an overnight thing. I mean, that took some work to run the dog and not only make sure he's not false responding. So I had to do a lot of blank cars. So it was a process to get him to that point.
But it kept you engaged enough to try new things. And
Correct.
Also at the same time, I mean, we knew that we had a dog that was working harder, but it also kept you safer too.
Correct. Yes, because everything that goes in that base, if something blows up, you know, it's...
Did y'all have any close calls?
I said both, because like if somebody on the base, the dignitary, the base general would go off base, we collected mail off base. Anytime that anything happened off base, the dog would go. And, you know, we'd go out there and they'll have meetings and stuff like that, and we had to search the cars before they get back in. And there was one time we had on the base general's vehicle on the motorcade. I had a hit on it with that same dog. And when he hit on it, I was like, this is a hit. We're out. Yeah. Like, we've done like 500 vehicles with no hits. This is definitely a strong hit. And they didn't find anything, but they ended up swabbing it like they do at the airports and found traces of...
Where there had been something there at some point.
There had been something. Now, whether, you know, somebody walked by, maybe it was a test, maybe they were... Who knows? But they did test positive on the swabs.
How do you, as a handler in that type of high-stress environment, how do you handle false positive or, you know, the dog hitting something and it's not there? I mean, does it plant a lot of doubt in your mind that, crap, if they're hitting on this and it's not there? I don't know if you ever had any, but, I mean, that would just do me in. If I got like a false positive on something, I'm like, what's happening here? Does that happen often?
No, it doesn't. The dog tells you, though. I mean, it's a different response from the dog. It's, you know, one's like, hey, I'm interested, and I'll maybe false response, and one's like, he's like,
it's there.
Yeah, he's moving all this. I mean, his body language is very obvious. Plus, like, I'll keep walking as he's like investigating that area. I'll keep walking, And I'll get to the point in the leash where I'm actually pulling on the leash, and he's pulling me back, going, and it's all right. He's not coming off of that. So that kind of tells me for sure.
Now, a bomb detection dog and a narcotic dog sound like you keep both of those separate, at least in the military. But are they also bite at the same time, or are some just? I mean, that's all they're there for is bomb detection. They don't have any bite work with them.
Oh, they're both. It's dual bite and for both dogs.
But the reason you would keep narcotics and bombs separate is you wouldn't want somebody hitting on narcotics when it's actually a bomb, and you misread that. So that makes sense.
Yes, because when you do it with the bomb, that was when you start off in the Air Force Academy. You start off with scent detections, bomb work, and you spend a few days just practicing without a dog because you do everything walking backwards.
And blindfolded too.
And you can't trip over things. You can't be knocking over things walking backwards with the dog.
Because you got to be keeping your eyes on the dog, right?
You got to keep your eyes on the dog. You got to be constantly looking back and looking where you're going and stuff. And a lot of people aren't very coordinated to do that. And I was one of them. It takes some time to get used to it, you know. But when you get into a drug dog, it doesn't matter. You can flip cushions. You can move stuff over.
You're not worried about something blowing up.
Dog can jump on a chair on the bed, but with a bomb dog, you don't jump on anything, you know. We don't want you really touching anything because that could be the bomb itself. So, they're all trained for protection training and patrol training, but with drugs and bombs, it's just the only difference is the footwork has to be really careful and not being clumsy with the bomb dog.
So you get back home from Bahrain. Is this when you transition out of the Air Force, or did you have to stay?
We moved to Charleston. So I had to extend, I think, an extra year for that.
This podcast is possible because of your support of our real estate business. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, I'm confident we have the tools and the processes to help you reach your real estate goal. For more information or to reach out to us, check out the podcast description for our contact info.
We were already in Charleston.
Yeah, we was already in Charleston. I'm sorry. Yeah, so
a year after you got back, or just another 6 months?
From Honduras. I didn't have enough time left in, so there was nowhere to put me unless put me back in Honduras. So they had to extend me out.
We were married at that time, so they had to bring him back. So after 9/11 happened, he was in Bahrain. I'm thinking for 6 months. And he didn't even get his orders of where he was going to go until he was actually on the plane itself. So he had no idea where he was even going to go. It was very scary. And then he was there for about 6 months, and then he came back, and then we were just waiting for him to be released, but that happened.
How long did it take after Bahrain for you to be able to get out when you got back home?
A few months.
Yeah, it was a few months.
So we're out of the Air Force. What's next?
Yeah. Man, this is still a crazy thing. We out-processed out of the Air Force. We loaded up and moved back home. No job and lined up.
No job, nothing.
Nothing lined up. Just came back home.
Out of faith. After you go through something like that, you just wanted it. I mean, he's originally from here, and there's family here, and our daughter was young at the time. And, when you go through something like that, you just want to go back to your roots.
Sure.
And that's kind of what we wanted. We just wanted to get away from the military, and we were thankful that, he had that experience. And then he just wanted to be a police officer, and that's what he just started putting in applications. So
with you having the military career that you've had, was it hard for you to find a job in law enforcement?
No, sir.
So you found a job in law enforcement. Where was the first place you worked at?
Well, we moved back here, and I thought I was taking the state civil service test for state police, and I found out I was taking the wrong test.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So when I applied for West Monroe Police Department, they said, well, you need to take a civil service test. I said, well, I've already taken one. They said, well, you took the wrong one.
So I forgot.
I didn't know that there were more than one civil service test.
And at the time, it took like 4 months to get your test results back. So
you're sitting there in limbo for several months, like, I need to work.
I need to work.
And unemployment wasn't a big thing back then. There was nothing, so we had to get a job.
I had about 60 days of leave from the military, so got hired on with Union Parish.
Okay.
So I worked with Union
Sheriff
Parish.
Buckley.
It was Sheriff Buckley for a year. And then I had my correct civil service test. And then West Monroe hired me. And I went on to West Monroe, and about 6 months after being on with them, I got a dog, a K-9 dog.
So, and
Yeah, it was almost immediate.
so West Monroe, not big metro area. We don't have a huge population, but we do have a robust police department. K-9s, a police K-9's not a cheap commodity. What would you figure the average cost for a police K-9 is?
Back
A
then.
green, like
Yeah.
a fresh dog?
Well, a dog that's already trained, bringing into
Like from
the
Paul.
Yeah, 15,000 probably.
so, but still 15,000. That's not cheap for a department to come in. So, tell me about your first dog.
Well, my first dog was actually a dog from Union Parish. That handler was, he had his dog, and he was holding on to this dog, and because they couldn't find a handler, because everybody was scared of it. Even the guy that was keeping it saying, he said, I don't never take this dog out.
This is an interesting story.
He says, I just slide his food pan underneath the fence, and I spray it out from the fence, and he said, I tried to take him out once, and he tried to bite me, and he said, that's been where it's at. So I said, okay.
So the dog was basically just sitting at somebody's house in Union Parish.
And
It's a
the
very expensive dog.
And the
'Cause
sheriff's
everybody was
office
scared of it.
is paying for the vet and the food and paying for the officer's time to take care of it.
Wow.
So I kind of like, I got an idea. So I went,
So, were you at West Monroe at this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
and they were in West Monroe. Told me, said when we get the funding and stuff like that, we're gonna get you a dog. And so I was like, let me go back to Union Parish. So I went back there and found out what was going on with this dog named Brando. And so I went to Bob Buckley and I talked to him. I said, this dog is costing you this much money in food, costing you this much money in vet bills. I don't know what you're paying the deputy for, but if you'd like to donate to West Monroe, I got lots of experience with canines, and we'd be slowly have it. So that's how I got my first dog. I ended up donating it to West Monroe for $1.
okay. How old was the dog?
Probably 4,
Okay.
3, 4.
3 or 4.
No, 3 or 4.
Now that's the difference between Chance in the being a police handler and being a military handler. Watching him with his dog, you saw the relationship there because he wasn't afraid of losing his dog.
Right.
So he actually had a stronger bond with his dogs because he only had 2 at West Monroe, so he had a much stronger bond.
So with you striking this deal with Union Parish, West Monroe's on board. So I'm just going to trust you with this. If you can make it happen, let's do it. So you go to pick up the dog. They've already told you that the dog, everybody's scared of it. They won't touch it. You go to pick up the dog. Walk me through that process.
Well, about the first 5 minutes we played with the gate. So I just cracked the gate maybe about 3 inches and just close it. He gets all excited wanting to come out the gate. And I just crack it and close it about the 3 inches. And then he finally looks at me like I'm stupid. So then I close the gate and I step back and walk away. And the guy's telling me, he says, man, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to get his energy level right before I put a leash on him. He says, you going to put a leash on him? You sure you're going to do this? I was like, yeah, it's going to be fine. He goes, man, this dog's going to bite you. I said, this dog's not going to bite me. So I went back to the kennel. The dog's energy level's down. Put the leash on him. Took him out of the kennel. He tried to bite me. We went for a little walk. Came back, and everything was fine. Walked him back to the vehicle, loaded him in the vehicle, took him back out of the vehicle, took him for another short walk, put him back in the vehicle. And the deputy was like, how'd you do that? I said, you sat here and watched me do it, you know? But dogs sense fear, but what people don't understand is they stop there. Dogs also sense confidence. Dogs sense when you're trying something and when you're doing something. If you're trying
Is it that pack mentality? I mean, they want to follow a leader?
They want to follow a leader, and they know what you know and they know what you don't know just by how you hold yourself, just by your posture and everything. They pick up all that stuff because they don't understand this English language. If they did, I'd be out of business and the shelters would be empty. You know,
100%. Can you say that again?
They don't. If they understood English, I would be out of business and all the shelters would be empty because we would just tell our dog, "Hey, stop doing that," and the dog would be like, Okay, note to self.
I find myself being having to laugh at myself when I'm trying to have a conversation with a dog to stop doing something. I've told you 3 times, and I'm just like, stupid. The dog doesn't understand what you're saying here, so I'm just like, crap.
Let me get. I don't want to get on a little side note here. Now, I do talk to dogs, and now since I've been in the private sector, I've been doing this Delta Canine Solutions for over 10 years. I've realized that when I talk to people, and when I'm in a consultation or graduation, if I'm talking directly to them, I get some attention. But if I talk to their dog, they're like really tuned into me. So a lot of the talking I do with dogs, I'm actually talking to the person, but I'm just speaking it to the dog to attract the owner's attention. So, you talk to your dogs and praise them and give them stuff like that, but saying, hey, don't get in the trash can anymore, don't jump on people.
But is it not true that praise is more of the energy you're projecting to the dog and not necessarily the words you're using? It's the higher pitch in your voice, or it's the motions that you're making, or do dogs pick up on those words? I know that dogs have a basic understanding. I can tell my dog to sit without any hand motion. The dog's going to sit. They understand what sit is, but they don't understand this big vocabulary.
Correct.
Okay, so you get the dog, you get it back home or to the police station. Talk to me about kind of how that relationship started, and did y'all have any times where you had to kind of backtrack a little bit?
I'm sure we had to do a little bit of backtracking. It wasn't much though. What the Air Force taught me, how to make easy training situations and challenging training situations. I just set up different scenarios and relied on the handlers that we had there too, and we set up different scenarios just to kind of grade the dog and see where he's at, and then push him to see what he's capable of doing. And that process goes by a lot faster than what people think. They really underestimate the speed of how fast a dog can learn. They really do.
We just have to train us owners in how to work with the dog the way the dog needs to be worked with.
Correct.
So, go ahead.
So, the only thing in the Air Force, we didn't do a lot of tracking. So that was one of my biggest things. I dove into it. I was doing tons of tracking because I didn't know anything about tracking. We did area searches, but not nose to the ground search.
Right.
So, I dove into that and really did a lot of tracking just because I was really interested in it.
Sure.
That was my weakness. No, it went well with that dog. He was definitely a one handler dog though.
There's other handlers that would never touch that dog.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
George.
I remember one of the guys that when we were certifying, it was a human error. He was trying. You need to do this.
Was it George, West Monroe Police Department?
Yeah.
George?
No. This is
Okay.
another guy down south.
Okay.
He was trying to explain something to me. I wasn't understanding him, and the route that he wanted me to take.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Here, let me see your dog, and I'll show you." And I was like, "You sure about that?" And he said, "Yeah." And so he grabbed the leash, and the dog growled at him. He said, No. You take the dog back and you go ahead. I'll walk you through it. And I said, "Okay."
Is it very common for K-9 handlers to have difficulty handling other people's dogs, or a dog being that could be aggressive to other handlers?
It just depends on the handler's experience,
You think another confident handler could have went up to that dog and taken over and would have been fine?
Yes.
All right, so West Monroe PD or in the police all total, what, about 13 years?
What's that?
Police department work, about 13 years? 12 years total.
The funny thing is a military leave ended November 10th. I got hired on Union Parish November 11th. So one day after.
Wow.
Yes.
I forgot about that too.
Isn't it wonderful how the Lord just works things out to your
Yeah.
favor?
Oh, wow. I'll give you something else here in a minute. The day I got hired on with the police department, the day that I retired from the police department was November the 10th.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So he did 12, it was
12 years and one day.
And one day.
Wow.
It was Veterans Day.
What do you think the change in our drug laws have done to the canines already working? A lot of states have went in and legalized marijuana. And I would have to assume that many of those dogs were trained on multiple different types of narcotics. And now this state goes and legalizes that. How does that affect a K-9 trying to do work and pull the right scent out? I mean, was there a lot of retraining that had to do across the country, or do you have any knowledge on that?
I would say it's still the same. I mean, it's still a controlled substance. The dogs are still trained. I mean, it's, even though Louisiana, it might be medical, but it's still illegal to possess it. They decriminalized it, but you still can't drive around with 2 pounds.
Right.
So the dogs, yeah, it's still the same. It's
Okay.
still the same as.
So, how did the decision come to transfer out to leave the police department? And I'm assuming that when you left police department, you went into the private sector and started. Was it at that point you did Delta K-9 Solutions? Kind of tell me what happened right after the police department.
Well, it kind of while I was still at the police department, we were doing school searches with drug dogs and throughout the whole parish. And I was at Ouachita Parish High School, and I walked by a bathroom, and my dog drug me into the bathroom. So the principal and the teachers kept walking, and we walked in the bathroom, and they hollered for me, and I said, "Y'all come in here." And there was nobody in the bathroom, but it smelled of burnt marijuana. And we walked out. That vice principal said, "Man, I wish I could have y'all come once a week." And I think this is when my mind finally clicked. The light bulb clicked, because they all kept walking, and I just stood there and thought about what he just said. And I said, I can train a dog to find all these odors that this police dog can find, and I can come back with a proposal of what you want, like once a month, surprise visits, under the same certifications as the police dog, and make a private business out of it. So that's...
But we have also had so many people over the years want him to do side work and train my dog. And
Did you do a little bit of that over the years for friends and family?
not really.
Mm-mm.
Okay. But you had to ask. That was out there a lot, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember back when my first base at the Air Force, after I got my first dog, I talked to the kennel master, and I said, "Hey, people ask me, they saw me in the newspaper. They want me to train their dog. Can I do that?" And he said, "No, you can't. That's a conflict of interest." He said, "You come by my house and help me." And I was like, so I went by his house and helped him, And that was the last thought of it. So
Sure.
So fast forward, we're at Ouachita High School, and so that's what we did. And we went through that whole process, and that was kind of a flop. And one day, the person I turned in the proposal for called me up, and I was like, "Oh goodness, he's calling for this drug dog."
This was Ray Clary.
I done sold the dog to a police department down south. Ray Clary's calling me, wanting me to bring this dog, or maybe the contract got approved. I don't know. But so I answered the phone, and he says, "I have a teacher here. She's in her mid-50s, and her 20-year-old son left his 1.5-year-old pit bull with her.
Mm-hmm.
She's got scratches all over her arms from jumping on her and tearing everything up. Is there any way you can help her out?" And I said, "Yes." And so I called her up, and I was there Friday, and I worked with her. And then before I knew it, there was another client called me before I could finish her, and it just started snowballing.
And Delta K-9 Solutions was basically born after that.
Yes. And then 2013, I opened up a Facebook page, and then it just blew up from there.
So were you still at the police department when you started it?
Yes, sir.
And you just got to the point to where, I mean, there's just so much going on that...
Well, he had to sell it to me, too. Because I wasn't totally on board him leaving the police department. So
it's scary, isn't it?
It's really scary.
You're getting rid of
Security.
the security of the benefits,
That's right.
the paycheck,
Right. But he was super passionate about
overtime, maybe
All of
the duty, the extra stuff that you get, the details.
it. Yeah.
It's kind of like when I got into real estate. I mean, it's scary, but I think you'll agree with this, that if you are a purpose-driven individual, you will work harder for yourself than any boss that's out there.
That's
At least
true.
I found myself to be that way, and it sounds like you're that way too.
Well, a
So,
lot of people have the misconception that just because you are, like, hey, I know somebody who's a canine handler, he can train my dog. Just because you're a handler doesn't mean you're a trainer.
mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think so many people put so much in there. Well, my neighbor, my cousin, somebody, he does dogs for so and so here. She's going to train my dog. That's just, I wish people would understand. If anything, just because they're a handler doesn't mean they're a trainer. It's a totally different thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I tell you, good luck and call us when that doesn't work out. And sure enough, they call us back and show up.
All trainers are not created equal. I mean,
Right.
I've seen some horrible things in my short life that I've lived on this earth that people do in the name of training a dog, and
yes.
some come across as
Absolutely.
even saying they're professional at it.
Yes.
I've went won't call any names, but back when I was really big into duck hunting, there was a Louisiana place kennel that would train your labs to be these champion water dogs. But these dogs come back without a soul. I don't know if you've ever experienced that or seen that happen, but I mean, literally, these dogs would work and would work hard, but it's like they had no personality, they had no soul, and I don't know what they did to them, but it just didn't seem healthy to me.
Mm-hmm.
So Delta K-9 Solution is born. You've got your Facebook up and going, and I don't get to spend as much time on social media as I used to, but man, your video, especially ones, the drone shots that are up there and just watching you work the dogs on the street, I mean, it's impressive. And let me tell you a little bit about my story with my dog, with you guys. From that first phone call, which you scared me to death that we made the wrong decision, but you eased it really quick, to that consultation to where it was like literally overnight, just giving me simple things to fix me, not fix the dog, because the dog is doing what the dog's supposed to do, but you fix me. Potty training done. Check that box off. And I would say a week after doing what you guys suggested, I mean, we didn't have to be as regimented as what we were before. I mean, the dog knew what was going on. Boxes checked, we're good. We go to the board and train. Did not know what to expect. We got this dog that's got like needle sharp teeth, that's jumping on our kids, jumping on everybody, and we're just like at wit's end. What are we going to do with it? We thought it was going to be a great family pet. We get back a brand new dog. Now, she was just as woolly as could be, but we get a brand new dog back. And the amount of people who will sit there and praise us when we take our dog place, we're like, how did you get this to happen?
I love that.
You know, ours is just like running like a banshee down the street, and we can't catch it like maybe till the next day when it gets hungry, it comes back home. How are you able to do this? And I said, well, I'm sure I could have done it myself if I'd have had expert training, but we sent them to you guys. Well, I can't afford that. You can't afford not to. I mean, if you look at the effort you guys put into it, and I know fees probably are different today than we were when I was there, so we won't talk about fees, but the value is in that I wouldn't call our dog a family member, but I mean, it's a part of the family.
Well, your dog is a family member,
It's in the mix of everyday life.
Right.
It's just intertwined, and her energy level will match our energy level. If we're outside and want to throw balls or run in place, she's not great at fetching. And she's got Retriever in her name. But other than that, I mean, she's fun to be around.
Golden Doodles are fun, though.
If we want her energy level to be subdued, she matches what we match, and she follows us where we go. She listens to us 99% of the time. And I think what you guys do is just absolutely fantastic. Now, and I'm not going to call the names out, but I know you've actually worked with a lot of big names that people would recognize if you called them out, of celebrities.
We have.
You've actually trained dogs for celebrities.
It's interesting because Dak Prescott was one of them that he trained, and he was quarterback for Dallas Cowboys. But at the time, this is a neat little story. We got a phone call and said, Dak Prescott wants to use y'all to train his dog. Well, at that time, he was just drafted to the Cowboys. We're training the dog. Every chance is doing his thing. And then all of a sudden, Tony Romo Is that his name, Tony Romo? Okay, he gets hurt, but I think he gets hurt all the time, right? So he got hurt all the time.
I'm not going to get involved in that debate.
So I think he got hurt all the time. Anyway, so at the time, Dak Prescott was the interim, I guess, at the time before they made him official. So we're like stuck with this Dak Prescott's dog. And we have to keep it quiet. You know, nobody needs to know. You know, we can't tell anybody because we didn't want anybody kidnapping Dak Prescott's dog, some crazy Dallas Cowboy fan. And we ended up with that dog for 5 months because he ended up being on ESPN. He was like the guy at the time. And so when the playoffs were finally over with, we still have Dak Prescott's dog. And throughout the season, he would be texting me, hey, how's my dog? Doing great. Don't worry about it. Just keep playing football. You know? So, and then when it was all over with, he paid for Chance to go to, I mean, when you're Dak Prescott, you pay to have the dog trainer to go to your house. And he did the graduation and everything at Dak Prescott's house.
That's pretty amazing.
So that was, it was a cool story because when we got the dog, Dak was just, you know, he was a Mississippi graduate, right? And he was just drafted. And then by the time he graduated, he was just like celebrity. Mm-hmm. So during that, you know, 4 or 5 months. So it was cool.
What kind of dogs, I mean, are there any dogs that are just not trainable?
No, it's people.
It's a people problem, isn't it?
People can't be trained because they're so stuck on their way of thinking and their idea and their communication and how they do things. Those are the dogs I can't work with because the owner's not willing to make adjustments and do things differently.
In the consultation that you had, do you ever find yourself in that time to where you're sizing up the owner like, I don't think we're going to be a good fit?
Chance, go ahead.
Do you have to turn some people away?
Yes.
And he does.
And good for you for doing that.
And he does.
I do.
Because here's
he just did last week.
And I know you probably already know this, but I'm make a huge assumption that if you did take that person on and they're not going to get the results because they're not going to do what's needed to be done, and all they're going to say is Chance doesn't know what he's doing because my dog is still broken. So it does you no good, does them no good, does anybody any good. So congrats to you for recognizing.
But let me. Sorry to interrupt you, but
it's okay.
Let me add something to that. It's not really that because in a consultation, one of the biggest things I want people to see is how quickly that change happens, and it gives those people hope in their dog. Like they think it's a lost cause, but literally in 7 to 8 minutes, in front of their eyes, they see a drastic change. A lot of times, they'll see it before they come in the door. They're like, "Whoa, my dog's not doing none of the stuff it normally does with other people." And I said, It's okay. Your dog's already feeding off of me, and he understands. Just come on in. We'll chit-chat about him. But
then what is that shift that you're saying that you're looking for with?
The shift, so they see that change. They see that hope, and they know it's possible. What pays me, what makes me feel good is when they enjoy it. When I look at the owner
appreciate it.
And they're like, wow, they're like, that's amazing. Or like, that's what it gives me goosebumps. I know a couple of weeks ago, I asked somebody, I said, what do you think? And the guy says, oh, that's good. I said, good. I said, okay. So I kept going. He says, I thought we was wrapping up. I said, no, we're not wrapping up yet. He says, why not? I says, because I don't work for just good. We're going to work till you say amazing, or till you say, man, I can't believe that. I said, that's what I work for. That check is just a payment. I work for that, So when I have people in there and they're debating with me about another dog they had, and why won't this work? And we're getting back into this debate. I'm not here to debate with you. I'm here to work with you and your dog and feed you good information. It's going to help you and benefit your relationship with your dog. And I just don't feel this in my heart. And if I don't feel it in my heart, then you're just going to. But it's rare that happens, Christi does. Yeah, I mean, there's 2-3 people. But I'll give you an example. My dog's aggressive. He's bit 2 people. He tore up the couch.
This just happened last week.
He tore up the couch. He's very destructive. We can't do anything with him, and we can't find him a new home because he's destructive and aggressive. So the only other option we're going to have is take him to the pound and have him put down. So they come in.
And they literally say on the phone, y'all are going to be my last hope before my husband makes that hard decision. So, of course, I try to get him in as soon as possible. I already know, because I go through a whole screening.
Oh, trust me, I went through it. I know.
Yeah. I go through
You had me second guessing my purchase.
I go through a whole screening before I even allow this person in front of Chance. Okay, so she checked. I mean, all the boxes were checked for me. So when I find, okay, this dog is biting your husband, this dog is destroying your house, you are afraid this dog is going to bite your children. Your husband is afraid that you're afraid now that your husband's going to put the dog down. I'm going to get you in immediately, because it's the last thing we want is to have a dog being put down. We want to save as many dogs as possible. So go ahead, Chance. You can take it from there.
So I'll ask a simple question: how does the dog eat the couch? Well, I was at work. Oh, why don't you kennel the dog? Well, I don't believe in kenneling dogs. That's inhumane.
The same person that's debating on putting the dog
down.
To put down. That's what kills me.
So you're not willing to put your dog in a kennel while you're at work to keep him safe and make sure you're not destroying your property and practicing bad behavior, ingesting something that could be toxic or choking hazard. You're okay with him doing that but not going in the kennel. But if that doesn't get fixed, you're going to take him to the pound and have him put to sleep. And if that's the conversation the first 10 minutes, like, I'm not going to go any further with you, because you're not a rational person. I'm not going to be able to talk to you in a way that you're going to understand what you need to do, because you think a kennel is bad. So.
But there's so many people that a light bulb goes off. You're right. I'm looking at this so differently.
Yes.
And those are the people that drive us to continue to help them. And they don't look at it in such simple ways, like, why am I having a problem with this? Why am I okay with the last resort being putting my dog down, but I'm not okay with this dog's no longer going to have to sleep in my bed? Because that's one of the 3 questions that I ask. When they're on the phone, they have issues. I literally ask, does your dog sleep in your bed? How does your dog, how do you feed your dog? And where is the dog when you are gone? I know so much information by those 3 questions. And then I'm like, okay, well, if we move forward, are you willing to not put your dog in your bed at night? Well, I'm not willing to do that. Well, then there's nothing I can do to help you. And then a week later, well,
can you tell the people that are listening why just the one thing of why a dog sleeping in bed is not healthy?
Because it creates a sense of insecurity to the dogs. They have attachments that are not healthy. They have a tendency to rule the house. Yeah. So when I ask a client, usually the answer is check, check, check. Does your dog sleep in the bed with you? Yes. So when you feed your dog and you put food in its bowl, how does your dog eat? Does your dog eat the food in its entirety? Or does a dog just free feed? Oh, I just put the food in, the dog eats whenever it wants to. Okay, so that tells me a lot right there. Okay, so also when you leave and your dog is in the house by itself, where's your dog? Oh, the dog, I have no idea. The dog's all over the place. So now this tells me that it's a female. The queen is the queen of the castle. Mm-hmm. She gets to sleep where she wants to. She gets to eat whenever she wants to. And she gets to roam the house wherever she wants to go. So now the dog is making the decisions, not you. And then this is why you're having the issues. If you treat a dog like a human, the dog is going to treat you like a dog. Okay?
That's good. I like that. That's a good analogy. It really is, though. I mean, I can see that. And when I look back on people that I know that let the dog sleep in the bed with them, and then I see that dog's behavior.
That's right. You match it up. Match it up. And they most of the time when they sleep in the bed, they are jumpers. Those dogs are jumpers. They're craving attention all the time. They're counter surfing. They're pulling on leashes. That tells you a lot of information. If they just put food down and let it graze whenever they want to, the dog's making all the rules. The dogs are making all the decisions. So when we go through that screening process on the phone, and if they're not willing to do those things, they don't get a consultation with Chance.
Because at the end of the day, if the dog's made all the decisions, at the end of the day, you can't come in and say, hey, I make this decision. No, you're out of here. I've been making decisions where I sleep, where I eat, what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. Who are you to come in and say, do this or you can't do that?
Sure,
you know?
absolutely. I mean, it's like, I don't want to give up my freedom. What are you doing to try to take this away from me?
Right.
So we got Delta K-9 Solution is rolling. Things are good. Business is good. And then at some point, like, why don't we get into the mobile dog grooming business? So talk to me about that, how that came about. Because I don't think we had any of that here at the time.
We didn't. Well, no. I'm going to take that back. We did. We had a fantastic lady named Phyllis Fontenot, and I will give her a shout out all day long. Or, she owns K-9 Couture in Calhoun. So she, I was sitting on the couch. I'll never forget it. We were just raining outside, and it was just crappy weather. And I just said, I just wish I had somebody come to my house to wash these dogs. And I'm a retired barber, so only a barber and a dog trainer can do that.
I had no idea you were a retired barber.
Yeah. So I found out there was only one lady. She's very special to me. And she just did small dogs, and she just had her own little set of clients, and she was done. She pulled a little trailer behind her truck, and she was amazing. And I actually saw her, or actually called her, and she came by a few times. But the dogs that we had were large dogs. And with her back issues, she just doesn't do large dogs. So then I started thinking, I know there's a business out there for this. I know there's a need out there for this. And so I started researching, like for all of these, like Florida, California, Texas, all of these other areas. The state of Louisiana really doesn't have a mobile grooming industry. The state in itself, there was one or two in Shreveport, one maybe in Baton Rouge, one or two in New Orleans. I mean, that's it. And they're all independents. Mississippi, same thing. So after Phyllis said, you know what, I'm sorry, I just can't come to you anymore. And I was like, no hard feelings, no big deal. So Chance and I started talking about it, thinking about it, and I doing more research, and I actually saw her on the side of the road on Bell Lane in West Monroe. And I just pulled my car right up in there, knocked on the door on the trailer. I said, hey. She goes, hey, Christy, what's up? And I said, listen, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And she goes, all right, who do you think do you have anybody in mind? I said, I think I got a couple of girls in mind. And she said, okay. And I said, would you train them? And she goes, yeah. So I said, well, think about the price. Now, this is blind faith. I could train these girls, and they can be like, okay, thanks for the training, bye.
But look at the testament to the person that she wasn't a business model that had somebody coming up to her saying, hey, I'm fixing to be your competition in town. Will you train my people for me?
You know what?
It had to be a relationship you had with her, though.
It was, and I don't think she ever really, she was kind of relieved that there was other people, plus the price point of mobile. I mean, grooming in its by itself was so low that it really needed to be higher. That is a skill. That is things that people cannot do. I mean, people should not be doing $40 golden doodles. I mean, that is... the price point.
Work.
There is work.
You don't understand how much work there is on Golden Doodle till you try to brush one out that hadn't been brushed out in a week.
That's right.
That's some work. I'm not talking about the cut or anything else.
That's
but
right.
That's some work.
So she was actually really excited about it. She knew that her time was, she was really wanting to go back into the brick and mortar.
Sure.
And so she knew it was a matter of time with that. And I think within 2 years she went and got her own shop in Calhoun. And she trained the first 3 groomers. And then by groomer number 4, my groomer number 1 was able to train her.
Good.
And DKS Mobile Grooming, I have no idea what we were going to name it. I always nicknamed Delta K-9 Solutions DKS. So we're just going to say DKS Mobile Grooming. And DKS Mobile Grooming was born on October 7th, 2017. And now we have 10 groomers.
10 groomers. How many vehicles y'all run
So we have
at DKS?
8 vans. I have 2 other vans that are being built. One being rebuilt, one being built.
And then on top of that, you got a new venture.
So after 6 years into DKS Mobile Grooming, I realized that we have an enormous bath dog, that was a surprise to me. I didn't think I'd have a lot of bath dog clients.
So these are just people that I don't need them trimmed or cut.
Right. These are pit bulls, labs, golden retrievers, Frenchies, pugs.
Just come wash my dirty dog.
Right. Well, that plus they shed. They shed. So they want their dog de-shedded. They still want, their nails cut. They want ears clean. They want teeth brushed, anal glands expressed, all of those things. And so it's like, okay, well, let's make something super fun out of this. So I started thinking about ambulances.
Okay.
And I found an amazing ambulance that's been converted into a mobile grooming van. So it's now an ambulance. It's going to launch, I think, next week. We called it Paw Patrol. It's, a little playoff on the cartoon. And the lights work, everything. I mean, we're not going to run it. I'm going to have to disconnect it with my groomers because I'm going to be too afraid. I won't trust them. But what Paw Patrol does for us, it relieves the groomers, where we can actually take the bath dogs off of the groomers, put them on to groomers that are waiting for a van to be built, give them, an opportunity to make more money after they've gone through all of their testing and mock days and everything. That I know that I'm confident with them now grooming dogs, and that gives them an opportunity, and it's fun. So that's another company it was kind of a surprise. We just kind of thought about that about a year ago, and now it's been a year in the making.
Not like you didn't have enough going on.
I know, I know. But I think this is going to be it. Well, we are going to eventually get into cats. So the mobile meow will be coming soon.
When you get into cat training, I want to be able to...
Not cat training.
No, if you ever do, I want to see that one.
Not cat training, but the mobile meow.
Yeah.
I've already LLC'd it, so nobody can take that name. But the mobile meow will be coming. I just don't know when.
So that's the next.
That's going to be the next one and the last one.
I don't say last. I mean,
that'll be it.
It looks like you guys have been on a roll for pretty much everything that you guys have started. I'm not trying to make it out to where life has never thrown any obstacles your direction, but it's a testament to what, if you love what you do and you're willing to put the work behind it, and take care of people, which you guys do and do really, really well. You have business that can flourish, and you guys have a great reputation in the neighborhood, and not just neighborhood, but in our whole area, with people who know what's going on and know how to take care of people. So I'm really fortunate that you guys came in to just kind of share your story. And if there's anything we could do to help you guys grow, know that our yes is on the table for you. If somebody wants to reach out to you guys, I want y'all to know that we're going to put your information. So this will be on video and on audio. In all of our show notes, we'll have all the contact information, how people can reach out to you guys. And we hope the best for y'all, and that this is just a continuation of what you guys are already doing. You continue to grow as far as you want to go. Well, we appreciate the invite here and the opportunity to talk about our ventures and what we do. Thank you for having us. Yeah, just, I think it's important that everybody has an opportunity to be able to have their story told. And I think what you guys do is great. And hopefully, if there's just one person that listens to this that gets inspired by your story, whether it's to start a business or to take a new approach to the next purchase. Yeah. I don't know. I just really appreciate what you guys do in our community, and I think your service is just fantastic. So thank you guys for coming out. Thank you so much. And we just look forward to see what the future has. I'm excited about this podcast. Yeah. Yes. Thank you guys. Y'all take care. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen to this podcast. We really appreciate your involvement. Please leave us a comment, or even better yet, subscribe to this podcast and hit that notification bell so that you can be alerted for every new episode when it hits.